world, welcome to Brussels, my love, our weekly talk show that dives into the highs and lows of EU politics. Today from the European Parliament in Strasbourg. I'm Stefan Grobe, thanks for tuning in. Coming up this week, energy bars, water and medicine. The European Commission wants European citizens to have a 72-hour survival kit at home. Why? To boost their preparedness against potential crises like natural disasters, industrial accidents or cyber and military attacks. But that's only on an individual level. Politically, Europe is also taking steps to be more independent and gearing up on all fronts. Is it working? And the economic squeeze is real and it's getting tighter. Citizens all over Europe are feeling the strain on household budgets. Consequently, consumer sentiment is down to the lowest level in years. As inflation chips away at purchasing power, the prospect of a full-blown trade war is making things worse. The ECB warns that Donald Trump's actions could trigger a global recession with severe consequences. Are we prepared for this one? That's the question for our guests today, all members of the European Parliament, and here they are. From Croatia, Jelena Zovko with the European People's Party. From France, Sandro Gozzi with Renew Europe. And from Sweden, Evin Insier with the Social Democrats. Welcome to all of you, and thanks for joining us. But before we get started, let's take a look at how the debate about European independence is shaping up.
Friedrich Merz, Germany's next chancellor, said it bluntly on the very evening of his election victory in February. His absolute priority will be to strengthen Europe as quickly as possible to really achieve independence from the US. The openly hostile attitude of the Trump administration has abruptly accelerated the discussions on strategic autonomy advocated since 2017 by French President Emmanuel Macron. No wonder that Merz and Macron are already best friends. From chip production to critical medicines, from securing supply chains to ramping up the military, Europe wants to stand on its own feet in the face of Russian aggression, Chinese assertiveness, and American protectionism. The continent sees itself as the lone torchbearer of liberal democracy, a survivor of sorts. And Brussels already asked its citizens to have a survival kit ready for crises that may or may not come.
When you heard about this survival kit, Jelena, what were you thinking? You think it's appropriate or is it kind of ridiculous?
I think it's very appropriate to put in the European citizens' minds that they should be prepared and that they are not shielded by anyone. So after the crisis that we had with COVID, I was also the rapporteur for EU rescue mechanism that was used at that time to provide medicines when we had a big health crisis. I think that we had to learn from that episode. The menace that is going on and raging around our borders is leaving us exposed. At that time, I remember the journalists were ridiculing our efforts to put into the attention of the people that we should be prepared for big health crisis, even for the nuclear war. And in order to have that, to have also the funds at the European level, and to have a prepared equipment, but only when COVID came, this happened.
Yeah.
So I think it's quite realistic, and it's good that we are doing this communication strategy.
I mean, what is the view from Sweden here? Is it practical? Is it helpful to have sort of one pouch for all kinds of possible threats, like a war, like a cyber attack, like a pandemic, etc.?
I mean, first and foremost, I would agree on that. It is appropriate to ensure that all our citizens are equipped in case something would happen. Nevertheless, I also think that the state, the governments, has a responsibility to ensure that the healthcare system is prepared, that the infrastructure is prepared. So yes, individuals have a responsibility, but the government has even bigger responsibility to ensure that the whole society is prepared.
Sandro.
Well, I mean, it was a very good signal because the issue is to raise awareness of ordinary citizens. I mean, it is clear that we are in a period where we are much more exposed to extraordinary events, be it floods, be it cybersecurity attacks, etc. So, I mean, to send out this video and to try to spread around the continent a culture of prevention and preparedness, like we have in Germany, like we have in Switzerland, like we have in the United States. I mean, this kind of survival kit, I mean, being prepared, it is already existing as a communication and information campaign and awareness campaign in some European states and across the ocean. I think it was a very, very good message. Because the message was, of course, the union must do its part, the member state, the government must do its part, but each of us can contribute to a collective prevention and response action, and each of us should be much more aware because we are all exposed, unfortunately.
Yeah. Well, I want to be devil's advocate here for a second, Juliana. Doesn't that survival kit instill a sense of drama, which might be contrary to a message of, kind of relaxation and, common sense? Don't worry, something like this.
I think it would be fooling people to say, don't worry. If our citizens are not aware of the dangerous world we are living in nowadays, then we are not doing it right. We are investing heavily into defense. We are investing heavily in our critical medicine. We are talking about all the attacks that are being done on our critical as well as strategic infrastructure. So citizens are the part of the system, of the society. Of course, the state institutions should provide and should vote for the budget to have all this material available. But the training for the civil protection unit, it's on a voluntary basis as well. The communication should be there, but also citizens should take their responsibility to get engaged and to prepare themselves.
Yeah, so one man was there, man you all know, Viktor Orban, right, the Prime Minister of Hungary, who has criticized the survival kit as part of an EU war strategy. What do you make of this?
Well, it's very evident that Orban is the puppet of Putin and has several times gone Putin's errands. And of course, nobody in the European Union is encouraging to war. What we are encouraging is to respect for international law and the sovereignty and respect for sovereignty and territorial integrity of Ukraine and other European countries. But when we are in this serious situation where Russia is constituting a threat, we also need to be realistic to prepare, even though, of course, that shouldn't happen. Preparedness is one thing, but then expecting the war is another thing. So preparedness, I think, is quite important. But it also should apply to the member states, the governments. Once again, also, I want to emphasize the importance of the government's understanding that we cannot cut down on the social welfare system, cut down on supporting the healthcare system, on infrastructure, and at the same time demand from everyday people to make themselves prepared. We need to have a whole system that is prepared. So the preparedness should also include a well-functioning welfare system.
Sandra, before I give the floor to you, we wanted to hear directly from the public, and we've asked people in the streets of Brussels what they thought about this individual preparedness. Here's what they told us. Take a listen.
We're living with fear when we see what's happening in the world. So I have my backpack, or we don't know what can happen.
I have more important things on my mind. 3 children, a job, your job, cats, dogs. At the moment, I don't think it's my priority.
I wasn't really thinking about it. And actually, I think like the war is still far away from us. So I don't feel afraid.
The idea of like war happening it's definitely gonna cause like shortages or something. So I'll definitely like prepare.
I don't think we can be prepared for emergencies like war or something. And even if we have a rucksack or something, it will not save us.
All right, Senator, you've heard it. We can't be prepared for emergencies. Even if we have a rucksack, it will not save us. Is that just being realistic or overly fatalistic?
This is exactly what I was meaning. I mean, it is clear that we need really an education to extraordinary events. Because, I mean, the reaction of, and I understand, the reaction of the United States is like, we are talking about a nuclear war. We are not talking a nuclear war, but we are talking about the fact that because of climate change, because of digital issues, because of cybersecurity, we can be all exposed to events which are less and less extraordinary because they repeat themselves. How many times we have seen cities totally devastated by floods? And how many times we have seen that if we had installed the culture of preparedness before, maybe we could have saved life. So, I mean, this is exactly what we have to do because, I mean, first of all, it's not only a question of war. Second, the human being tend to think, well, it won't happen to me. It won't happen in my town. It won't happen in my region. And in fact, we see that more and more. It is happening. Of course, I mean, this is only part. This is the point of the iceberg. Yeah? It is clear that, I mean, for example, on infrastructure, on the management of rivers, the government, the region, the town hall must do much more and much better. We have seen also that, I mean, because there wasn't a good management of the side of the rivers, there have been dramatic floods. So, I mean, we really have to enter into a new culture that depends on governmental action, public action, but also on each of us.
Okay, let's leave the kit behind and talk about the strategic autonomy that leaders are advocating. Friedrich Merz and Emmanuel Macron were our examples in the video. First, is their diagnosis correct? And what should be done first now?
The diagnosis is correct that the European Union needs to invest more into our strategic autonomy. I mean, if you say strategic
what are the sort of the fields, the
defense,
the top
defense, food supplies, and medical supplies. And this is exactly what it is being done. The Council has gone and has the same approach and agreement on these issues, and we can see that in Croatia we are heavily now investing into defense and also into changing our equipment from going from the eastern one to the completely western dependency on the equipment. We are entering the new phase of being solely responsible for as a member of the NATO and increasing our expenditure, but strengthening European pillar of NATO doesn't mean that we can immediately go into strategic autonomy, because strategic autonomy means that we have nuclear shield that is fully functioning. Can we rely on that? Just one country that is still has a different way of deciding how to provide this nuclear shield. So in my opinion, for time being, we have to show our readiness to invest much more into European defense, and we are showing it. But in the long run, we still are dependent on United States of America, and we want them to stay as a functional member of NATO, who is really providing the most.
Right. So we've heard defense, food, medication. Is that on top of your priority list too, Evan?
Yeah, I mean, it's an important part of the priority list, but I think the priority list also needs to include other parts, as, for example, once again, the importance of ensuring we have a functional infrastructure, medical supply, for example, that we are not fully dependent on US. We also need, when it comes to the strategical autonomy, we need to also look at the social media platforms, for example, right now, with the power that they have and who they are controlled by. Both ensure that we enforce the legislation that we have, regardless who are the owners of the social media platform, but also look into how can EU create its own platforms. So I think when it comes to the preparedness and when it comes to EU becoming stronger, we need to see it from a broader perspective also. But first and foremost, the most important, I would say, is a united European Union. And unfortunately, we see Orban in Hungary, but we also see Slovakia turning to the other side, so to say.
Yeah. Sandra, do you agree?
Well, I mean, in the last years, we have gone through a series of major, I would say, historical crises that have shown that we are too dependent on the rest of the world. First, the health crisis, the COVID crisis, we discovered that we are dependent on pharmaceutical production, on India or on China, and it is clear that we have to regain autonomy on that. Then we had the aggression of Putin, the war of Putin against Ukraine, and we discovered that we are too dependent, some countries are too dependent for energy on Russia. So it is clear that energy is another issue on which we have to diversify and we have to become more autonomous. And now we have discovered finally that after all Emmanuel Macron was right in 2017, that for our security and defense we cannot depend on the decision of American voters each 4 years. And we cannot depend on what it thinks the President of the United States of America. We have to become much more autonomous in the military defense field. That doesn't mean that we have to be alternative to NATO. It doesn't mean that we have to do something outside the transatlantic framework. That means that we have to become more credible, more effective within the transatlantic alliance, but also that we must give ourselves the means to provide of our security also when the Americans decided not to do so. And I think that, unfortunately, the very aggressive declaration of Donald Trump and of his Vice President Vance are very clear, and they only have to push us to accelerate. So, I mean, the autonomy is manifold.
The autonomy, one key aspect, one key focus of this strategy is the stockpiling of essential equipment and supplies, especially medicines. You've mentioned that already. Something that is supposed to go into your survival kit as well. Does Europe have the necessary supply chains for that? We spoke to Elisabeth Kuiper from the European Policy Center, and she had this answer for us. Take a listen.
Critical medicines are medicines for which no alternative is available. And if you think, for example, about a very concrete product, which is antibiotics, which really are the cornerstone of modern medicines, and very few companies actually manufacture them in the EU. So if we would run out of antibiotics, that would be very harmful for patients and healthcare systems. The aim of the Critical Medicines Act is to enhance resilience and security of pharmaceutical supply chain issues. And part of it can be done via, for example, investing in manufacturing capacities, but also investing in reforming procurement capacities and systems. And that is feasible, but I think indeed we need to be careful when we speak about independence, because after all, we're speaking about global supply chain. So it's about openness, but probably we need to redefine openness and see with whom we can work.
Yeah, she made an interesting point there with the independence versus a global supply chain. Is this where the strategic economy finds its limits, Evan?
Yeah, well,
you still need global partners,
yeah,
right?
Definitely. I mean, independence doesn't mean protectionism. It means that we need the bases, the most important parts. But nevertheless, I mean, there are other partners also. We have Australia, we have Great Britain, we have Canada, and many others. And hopefully also US will come to its sense one day, and Trump will be out of the White House so that we can continue having these important relations, the transatlantic relations that we have. But there are many other partners also, Japan, for example, we have Mexico, Brazil. So, yeah, strategic autonomy means strong Europe, but it does mean an isolated Europe.
Well, we'll see about Trump. That might be a pious wish here after his latest remarks. Juliana, wouldn't independence also mean some sort of protectionism? And would that endanger global cooperation on issues like climate change and the fight against pandemics?
Well, we must be aware of the new world order in making. Multilateral world that we know it has changed. And we must admit as well that without America contributing to that, we won't be able to do much. I used to cover UN agencies, and the problems that we are facing with this fact sooner or later will hit us. But still, if we are trying to make all these trade agreements, but recently, who was the one who liberated the trade route in the Red Sea? It was Americans. And without the criticism, we must, accept the reality, build bridges with the United States, whoever is in the administration at this moment, to try to assure and to have this security, but also work without like-minded.
I want to ask Sandro, because we're running out of time here on this topic. Sandro, on this defense independence, it takes, Germany has put massive money on the table. The EU has mobilized a lot of money. All this takes years until we see the results of this. What I want to know is, does this come with a new role for Europe in the world?
It must come with a new role of Europe. We must absolutely see this opportunity. We have to show a sense of urgency. The sense of urgency is to continue to support Ukraine, to have a fair and long-lasting peace. But at the same time, we have to see what we want to be from here in 10 years. And we have to build up a new governance. We have to structure and make it permanent our cooperation for defense security. We have to create a group of willing and able countries within the Union which cooperate with UK, with Canada. This is exactly, we have wasted too much time. Now it's time to go.
That's exactly the issue here right now. We have to finish this conversation here. We're going to take a short break. And when we come back, tariff terror. Is Trump tanking the global economy? Don't go away. Welcome back to Brussels, my love. Our guests are still Sandro Gozzi, Evin Inchir, and Zeliana Zovko. The world economy is struggling to make sense of the latest salvo of Donald Trump's tariffs. And it's businesses and consumers everywhere who will likely foot the bill one way or the other. The European Central Bank renewed its warning of severe economic consequences. Goldman Sachs upgraded their U.S. recession risk to 35%, and stock markets around the world are experiencing one bad trading day after the other. So, everything is at stake here. Inflation is on the rise, consumption is showing signs of weakness, and consumer sentiment is slipping. All this stemming from Trump's tariff policy. How much worse can it get, Sandro?
It can turn into a very bad and nasty tension across the Atlantic, and which doesn't make any sense. What Donald Trump is doing doesn't make any sense. With the tariff that he has announced, we risk to lose 1% of our wealth as European, and the Americans are going to lose 0.5%. It doesn't make sense, the escalation that he's looking for. And I understand that in Washington, I've been in Washington. In Washington, they are obsessed with China. They think that the big competition for Washington is against Beijing, and they start eating their best historical lies that are the Europeans. This is absolutely, wrong. It's a major mistake. And also, they do not want to negotiate with the only actor who can negotiate on our behalf, which is the European Union, the European Commission. This is what Donald Trump must understand. He sees the European Union as an obstacle. He said that the EU was born to screw US, which is historically false.
They don't like the European. They hate the European Union.
They hate the European Union because they see the European Union as the only obstacle to their imperialistic logic.
What do our consumers here need to be aware of in the weeks and months ahead?
The consumers will suffer because of this tariff war and the tariffs that are imposed. But what we are aiming for is focus on strengthening single market, European single market, and redirecting also our trade. Some countries will suffer more than the others who were focused on trading with the United States of America. And although the trade is at European Union level, the approach that Trump has towards certain countries will affect more the economies of the certain countries. But what we need to do at this moment is also to focus on the trade agreements and the partners that we are now having this agreement with, like-minded partners, and also strengthening our single market and redirect our trade.
Yeah. I mean, we've heard Ursula von der Leyen this week speaking at a parliament saying that we are the #1 economic bloc in the world. We have the biggest population, and we have also a massive arsenal of tools. Is that the language Donald Trump understands? And is this the stance that you hear in this building as well?
Unfortunately, that's true. Trump has shown in many cases that he only knows the strong language, and when he feels some kind of a weakness in a language, he's prepared to go all the way. That's also the sense that I feel that that most of the people here in the parliament also feel, even though Trump's allies on the far right side have grown after the last mandate, most of us, or at least us pro-democratic and pro-European forces, have that stand. But what I just want to emphasize also that the logic of Trump is ludicrous. And we see already that some people in the US are reconsidering why they even voted for Trump. At the same time, I also want to highlight the importance of the responsibility that the companies here in the European Union also needs to take. In Sweden, we have right now a huge discussion on that the CEOs takes out a lot of profit still in the middle of this crisis and stakeholders, while everyday people are being affected. So the whole society here also needs to take responsibility. Right. CEOs cannot continue and stakeholders take out profits while everyday people are being affected by the crisis.
We spoke to Philipp Geisels, chief strategist at financial group BNP Paribas Fortis, about the escalating trade war and its consequences. He believes that what is happening now could also have a positive side. Take a listen.
It's an irony that it's the American markets and the American economy that's hurt more than the European one at the moment. Now, of course, it's also hurting our markets, but if you look at the longer-term picture, I believe this is maybe the kick in the butt that Europe needs in order to get its act together. And I think what's on the table in Germany today, and they're going to do, it's a Marshall Plan. It's like money that they put in for the reunification, so that's very important. Of course, a lot of other things are needed, like more innovation, less regulation, maybe a capital union, what have you. But this is a very important first step. And I think maybe when we look back at this moment, 10, 15 years from now, maybe this was the point that things started to improve for Europe. So short term, yes, volatility, but maybe there is progress as well.
He's raising two interesting points here, Sandro. First of all, the kick in the butt argument. What do you make of this? So we need a moment like this to get our act together.
I make a proposal, if you allow me. Let's give the Charlemagne Prix for the good Europeans to Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin, because they are the new founding father of the European Union. They are really putting the Europeans confronted with their need and responsibility. It is time to act. We have wasted time, I was saying, on defense. We have wasted time on investment. We need European public goods. We need a strategy of private and public investment. We have been discussing with the Germans for at least 10 years, I was still a minister, the Union of Investment and Savings, and the Germans have always blocked for their banking system. Now it's time to act. So, I mean, if Germany wakes up, because they woke up with Putin on energy, they are waking up now with Trump on security. If they wake up also on the need of union of capital investment, I think that we take some bold step towards a real union.
Kick in the butt, and 15 years from now, we'll be happy about this. Juliana.
No, but absolutely. We should never complain about somebody else if we have not understood so far that we cannot live in a la-la land where everything is perfect. We have perfect social security. The state is providing for everything. I mean, this is how the old socialist system have dissolved. And I think predator system, where what Trump is representing, shows you that the world is a jungle where you have to prepare your citizens for this game.
It's a jungle, I hope not. All right, so much for the escalating trade war. The latest on this topic, as always, in our news, TV or digital. For now, thanks to our guests and to our viewers. Stay with us. Hello and welcome to Brussels, my love, our weekly talk show here on Euronews. I'm Stefan Grobe. My guests are three members of the European Parliament. Evin Insier, a social democrat from Sweden, Juliana Zovko, a Christian Democrat from Croatia, and Sandro Gozzi from France, representing the Liberal Renew Group. Let's imagine, for the sake of argument, Elon Musk was an EU citizen and marauded through EU institutions with his chainsaw, massacring staff and budgets. How many EU employees in Brussels, Strasbourg and Luxembourg would he fire? Which agencies would he close, or which services would he abolish as unnecessary? Would he take an axe to the European Parliament's daycare centre, for example? Now, speaking of the European Parliament, could Musk find what he's looking for here? After all, the European Parliament has seats in Strasbourg and Brussels, as well as a secretariat in Luxembourg. Is that too much of a good thing, Juliana?
I'm quite critical on this matter, and I'm well known.
Critical meaning you're.
No, I think that we should show more efficiency, and although to be in line with the with the time we are going through, and also the need to cut down the bureaucracy. So bureaucracy should not replicate itself. We are there to help businesses. Businesses are paying, and working citizens are paying for our salaries. And Brussels, when they say they hate Europe, they don't hate Europe, they hate Brussels. And this is what we are, as elected politicians, we are feeling when we are going to our constituencies. They're asking us, what is going on? I mean, how are you helping our businesses? How are you helping our SMEs to thrive? And we are working hard as a political group as well to deliver, to show that European Union is competitive, and with that we are not into bureaucracy anymore.
But on this double seat, Evin, Brussels, Strasbourg, of the European Parliament, I mean, this is something that is part of the treaty. It was fully incorporated in 1997. We have to live with it. It's law. I mean, there have been repeated initiatives ever since, also from inside the Parliament, to change this and to abandon one seat. And that's where the problems start, usually. What is your take on this?
Well, I'm totally, very clearly against having these 2 seats, and 3 also if we include Luxembourg on it. And I think that the more realistic or the better would be to have 1 seat, both from an economical perspective, from an environmental perspective, and from an efficiency perspective. So there are no arguments at all to maintain this moving carousel.
It's not only a question of money, which is very little, the question of history and of symbol. Strasbourg is a symbol for the European of the reconciliation after 2 world wars. Strasbourg is the regional capital of a region which has shifted between France and Germany, and I don't know how many times. And I think that also we have to, always recall to the citizens the history from which we come. And the other point is that why we want to centralize everything in Brussels. I'm very surprised, especially, our colleague from Sweden. The Swedes are always so reluctant about centralization. Oh my God, the European Union
you triggered her.
Is taking away from Sweden our best democracy in the world, and then they want to centralize everything in Brussels. Why?
Okay.
I mean, we can uniting in diversity means also being decentralized with the institution of the Union. And I mean, we talk about 100 million euro per year. You know how much management costs the city
now
of
you're
Paris?
sounding like Elon Musk.
You started with Musk. I'm giving the Musk argument.
I don't think we need Musk to highlight and address this issue, because this has been a long, ongoing discussion on about the seats. But for me, it's not about centralization, because I'm not talking about the agencies. The agencies shouldn't be in one place. They could be in different member states, and it should be, because all the member states need to have a connection to the European Union, because European Union is the member states. But when it comes to the specific parliament, I do not see any sense of having several parliaments. We don't have it in Sweden. France doesn't have several parliaments in France. as far as I know. In Croatia, I cannot imagine.
We don't have even
Belgium
any
has a lot,
agencies, so.
right?
Yeah, but that's I'm talking about national
agencies,
parliaments.
So that's a crucial problem.
Juliana,
but
yeah.
my point is that we should reduce bureaucracy, not reduce
Yes.
seats.
Yeah.
I'm very francophile, and I think that we should keep a seat in Strasbourg,
Yeah.
because that's very symbolical, and it's politically important to send a message
Yeah.
that this is reconciliation, city of reconciliation. And we must remember the war and how the European Union was made. We know that there was a discussion maybe that the seat is in Rome in the beginning, after the Treaty of Rome. So Brussels is perfect, but Belgium is a perfect example. Brussels has a bad image for all our citizens. Just, you know, they're always blaming Brussels.
Yeah.
So we should also publicize more that we are also in Strasbourg and in Luxembourg, but bureaucracy should be reduced. We should cut all these unnecessary commissions and bureaucratic procedures. This is how we could save more.
All right.
But I can't.
There's not only...
Maybe reduce the agency would be a good idea, because
Yeah, I mean, some
nobody
agencies-
knows the
most probably-
agency
This
are in the
travel,
member
you know,
states.
people deride this as a traveling circus every
Exactly.
month. But I must say, and I'm affected by this as well. I come here once a month for a few days, and I like it. I like Strasbourg,
course, yeah.
and I think it's part of the European, you know, political and cultural reality that we're that we have several centers of policy and opinion making.
I think we can actually cherish culture in different ways also. It doesn't just need to be through having the seats in several different places, but we also need to have in mind that it costs. It's taxpayers' money we are talking about. So if we want to be efficient, we need to have that included. It's also, from an environmental perspective, not good at all. And efficiently, work-wise efficiently, I do not see any advantages from that perspective also. So I fully subscribe to that. We need to cherish our history. But I can promise you that very few people in Sweden would know this historical link to Strasbourg.
Well, no,
Right.
don't
that's
underestimate
our
the knowledge of history of your own
Now it's getting really heated, but it was a great conclusion, and finally we've seen some action here. We've reached, unfortunately, the end of Brussels, my love. Thank you all for watching, and many thanks to our panel here in the Parliament. If you want to continue the conversation on any topic, write to brusselsmylove@euronews.com or contact us on social media. That's it for this edition. I'm Stefan Grobe. Thank you for watching again. Have an excellent week. See you soon.